Welcome to the Soulful Ambition podcast. I'm your host, Analisa Leaming, Broadway actor turned coach for big dreamers. This is a show about choosing to live inside out, becoming sourced from within, and then acting upon your deepest longings. From starting your dream business to starring on Broadway, from sacred activism to being a radiant, aligned parent and everything in between, we will walk the razor's edge of these two seemingly contradictory words, soulful ambition. This podcast is here to awaken the longing in your chest that is so big it threatens to swallow you whole. Because the manifestation of your true desires is your destined path and the medicine and the magic that the world needs. This is Soulful Ambition. Hello, welcome back to Soulful Ambition. I'm so excited to be here today because I'm going to talk about something that I'm stoked to talk about. And my goal is for it to be short and sweet. And first I want to say the last episode actually came out today, the day that I'm recording this. And already the love that I've gotten, the messages from people I know and I don't know about how people are like, yes, I'm in the same place. Or, oh my gosh, thank you so much for sharing this. Or, oh my gosh, I'm on the other side of this. And like, I see you, go, go, go. It's filling my heart. And it's really, validating again, that's not the right word, like confirming again how much people want our authenticity. We want to see each other's, true stories and what we're really going through versus just the highlights. I could have skipped over all of this and just been like, we're moving and I'm so excited for this move and here's why, rather than like really sharing the darkness that led up to it. So anybody else out there, kind of wanting to share more and not being sure how, just like it matters. It really matters if it's what you're called to do, because we're not all called to share in this way. And if you are, it matters. Also, this will probably be, maybe the next episode too, but if you've been curious about the Soulful Ambition Circle, there may be a spot left for you. And it is the group program that I run. We'll be starting August 12th and going through the end of the year. It is a beautiful group of souls devoted to living their truth authentically, kind of everything I've been sharing in my own life, doing this together, connecting with our deepest longings and desires because they truly matter. They are the blueprint that we're meant to follow, and discerning, like maybe the old goals aren't my truest anymore, and being in a group of others to swim in those waters together. Or if you're like clear as mud, like this is my path, and I would love to be in a group where I can consistently tether myself to my highest self and my inner wisdom. Like, this is it. This is the space. So click the link below wherever you're watching or listening to this, and you can apply. And I would love to journey with you. All right, let's dive in. Okay, don't kill me, but we're going back to shadow. I'm just obsessed, you all, because for so long, so many decades, I spent not understanding these parts of myself. And now I'm understanding these parts of myself and I'm accepting them and integrating them. And I'm doing the same with my clients. And it's just life-changing. And so I've decided I've gone on a pretty deep dive and will continue to do so. Maybe I'll go back and get my master's someday in this. We'll see. But for now, there's so many resources on the internet. So I'm kind of like going at self-paced learning, but I've been diving into Carl Jung's work. And it's been fun to, like, where I started with the shadow work was, rewilding and this embodiment and almost kind of like you kind of feel into this shadow aspect of yourself, a part of yourself you don't like or you feel ashamed of. And you move with it, right? And that's what I've shared in the past. There's also Xavier's work, which is another angle of it. If you have not listened to that episode, I cannot recommend it enough. Xavier Dagba's episode. And then Carl Jung, I feel like what I'm getting from studying this more is the mind food, is more understanding of it. We live in our minds, we're not just completely embodied primal animal, we have this beautiful conscious mind. We have this beautiful computer of a brain as well. And what we focus on does expand. Okay, so let's start with this exercise. I think I first heard of this exercise in Jen Sincero's book, You Are a Badass. So you may be familiar with it, but maybe you forgot. And it's always great to do. I do this with all of my clients. So I want you to look around your space, really do this. I don't care what you're doing. Okay, if you're driving, maybe don't, but you still sort of could. But look around your space. I'm going to give you a few seconds to look around your space. And I just want you to count everything that is yellow. Okay, great. Close your eyes. Unless you're driving, don't do that. Now, tell me without looking, how many things in your space are red? You don't know because you were counting the yellow things. You gave your brain a task and it did that really well. It found all the yellow things in your space. But there are red things. You saw them in your periphery, but that's not what you were focused on. And so I just love this example. So when we're focused on things like, it's just not possible for me to meet the love of my life. Like it's not possible. Our brains go to work. They seek coherence. Our brain wants to do things as simply as possible. It doesn't want to exert extra energy. So our brain isn't logically going to be like, that's not true. Here's why. Our brain is going to go, okay, follow program. And then it's going to seek coherence. It's going to seek evidence why it's so hard to find somebody because you live in New York City and there are too many people or whatever it is, right? Or because you live in a rural area and that won't exist. So I think the more we can I think our shadow, what I'm understanding and through Carl Jung's work is like our shadow bits, those parts of ourselves, they're so unconscious. So in a way, I feel like we're operating from them. We're just operating from them like a fish in a bowl doesn't understand that it's in a fish bowl because that's just its reality. And I sometimes think like, especially these really ingrained things, like maybe you learned early on, maybe you were taught by somebody in your family, like you're actually not a really good writer. Like that's just not your skill. And that has just become your reality. That's your fishbowl. It's not conscious. That thought that like, I'm not oh, I learned that from here. That's not a conscious thought. And so then when you start to notice, but I actually like to write and you can start to work with it and decide and maybe start to have your brain seek out other things, like look for other evidence. That's just a silly little example that came to me in this moment. But of course, we can go much deeper with that. It's like if the programming, if this like shadow aspect of yourself is this like something's actually, I'm actually flawed. There is something wrong with me. Like I'm just not going to find somebody. To maybe start look at it as this bit of shadow, like that's not who I really am. For some reason, somewhere along the way, I picked up this set of beliefs, or this conditioning, or it's in my DNA, it's in my epigenetics. Like, when we start to bring the light of our consciousness to it, we can start to, with a lot of love and practice, we can start to shift it. So here's what I want to share. I'm going to go back and forth between a few resources. So I'm on this website right now called Orion Philosophy. This is a quote of Carl Jung's, though. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. The latter procedure, however, is disagreeable and therefore not popular. So in a way, I've been thinking about this, and this is the framework that I'm going to bring to this episode today, is, so I've been obsessed with the main character energy. If you're not familiar with that, if you're like, what are you talking about? Again, click below. I have a whole practice on main character energy. It served me and clients really, really well. Some people could call it fake it till you make it. Like there's so many frameworks on that in and of itself that it's like my highest self, my true self even. The shadow, is described by Carl Jung, is the unconscious part of our character or personality that does not align with the ideal version of what we're aiming for. Okay, this is really big. Here's why. So, right, the ideal version that we're aiming for. And especially I just think in this like, self-help has become so popular, everybody is like, yes, Brene Brown and You Can Do Hard Things, Glennon Doyle and all like we love this. We love this idea of bettering ourselves and expanding ourselves and this truer version, this ideal version of ourselves. I'm here for it. I created a practice around it that includes embodiment and mind food and journaling called the Main Character Energy Practice. So again, you can sign up for that before and get that. But there is this other side, right? There is our shadow side that has, so many facets and colors and characteristics. And we could break that up into like different characters too. But what if the same practices that we do with the main character energy, right? So you're going into a job interview, you're going out on a first date, you're going into a big audition, or kind of where I'm at is like, I want to do this in my daily life, in my home, in my kitchen with my babies. So it's like, I practice this feeling into my truest alignment, kind of letting the mind go and feeling into what I'm here to do, my deepest longings, my deepest callings, the love that is present and kind of embodying it and amplifying it. That's part of this kind of main character idea. What if we do that same thing very consciously with the shadow, with our shadow? And I think it takes bravery. A lot of us, we don't even know how to be with the discomfort that's going to arise when we do this. We have to look at the parts of ourselves that are really judgmental, manipulative, that victim, the victim that just, that playing the victim that points at everything else and everyone else. If only these things were different, then I could be. And like, not everybody's up for that task right now when you're listening to this. So if this isn't for you, exit out of this. If this is making you angry, maybe come back to it later. But I'm going to keep speaking to the people that are like, yes, I'm on board. Let's go. So when you're like, yeah, I'm tired of pushing down, or I'm tired of these aspects of myself being in the driver's seat unconsciously, like living, let's say like, it's like the part that I'm going to use the performing example again, even though I know a lot of you listening aren't performers, but you'll get this, right? Like I have this big longing, and there's this other part of me, this deep fear that it's just not going to happen, that my biggest dreams won't happen, and that I'm going to be a failure to others or myself. That there's this voice in me that's like, but what if I can't actually cut it? And what does that mean about me? And I don't want that aspect of me to be in the driver's seat, to make the decisions, the choices of my life, whether or not I reach out to that director and put myself out there, or whether or not I keep going, like I want to, but this other part of me, it's like growing. It's Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And Mr. Hyde, it's like the more I don't look at it, or the more I shame that part of me. And I'm just like, okay, I just need to get my thoughts better. I need to think these kinds of things and focus on this. Like it's like growing, I used to say humming in the background, but sometimes it's more, and it can, manifest as physical symptoms, as the anxiety, as the racing heart, the racing thoughts, depression can affect our sleep. So we might not even know what that is, but then it's like waking up. It's like, oh my God, I'm in a fishbowl. Oh my gosh, there's this aspect of me okay, I have to be vulnerable. I don't want to be. I don't want to share this, but I have to share this. Because my real example right now in my life that I've been working with is around my weight and my body. And it's like I realized since having my first baby, I've been struggling to accept myself, but also I know that the body that I'm in right now isn't like the healthiest version and isn't like it's not operating optimally. So what I realized is how much I've been living in the fishbowl of like, this is just the way that it is for me. You know, I'm getting closer to my 40s, or I'm turning 40 this year, and it's just going to be harder. And I just have a thing with this, and I'm like, this is just how it's going to be. And it's not that those are super conscious thoughts, but are they self-sabotaging? You know, it's affecting then all of the actions. It's stopping me from reaching out for help, or it's not anymore, but it has stopped me from reaching out for help and support, and maybe getting in the group program or getting a coach. Because like once you get that coach or you go in the group program, we're going to look at this stuff, and you might not be ready. I probably wasn't ready. I'm ready now. And I realized like, okay, so how can I start to consciously personify, get to know this shadow? And then I want to weave in some of Madeline Moon's work that she talked about on the podcast, which was like giving it like doing sacred theater with our shadow bits, which with these parts of us that we don't like, wish were different, are afraid of, are ashamed of. And man, is it powerful. I think another aspect for me to share, I just love sharing examples because I think then we can really think into our own lives, is kind of like, I just think of her as like my, what do I call her? Like the martyr mother. That is an aspect that I can really slip into. And I notice that now my tells, my signs, my markers are when I feel resentful, you know, when I get resentful of how well my husband can take care of himself. And I can get really like, well, I did this this morning, when in actuality, there's a part of me that's envious of how he can like get up and do some yoga and then come help the family. And how I need to start stepping up and going, hey, on Tuesdays and Thursdays, I'm going to do this. And he might not like it in the moment. He'll support it. But Mother Martyr is really strong. And so what I've started to do is now the more familiar with her and the kinds of thoughts that she has. So exactly like I've gone into main character and I'm like, oh, this is kind of what she looks like and feels like when I've stepped into her. My chest is open. I'm grounded. I'm rooted. She believes this about the world and this about her purpose and this about how others feel about her, etc. Now, what if I start doing this about aspects of myself, like my shadow, that the aspects of my shadow, like Mother Martyr, where I'm like, oh yeah, her shoulders are down. That's her shape. Her shoulders are down. Her brow is furrowed. Furrowed. Her brow is furrowed. And she's tight. She is rigid. She is on a vendetta. She will do everything for everyone else and prove how good she is, but wait for somebody to take care of her. Yeah. Woo. That's crunchy. I'm sharing this now and it's easy to say, but like first going into that, and then you start to realize, well, what do I get? Like, what do I get from, why wouldn't I want to give that up? Ooh, that's crunchy too, right? Like the power, the false sense of power that I get over others being so noble and righteous. We all have these aspects within us. The other thing that's so cool about when I've really started going into this and watching clients really go into this as a practice, like get out your journal and get to know these parts, write about them. Another thing that's really cool about doing this work is how compassionate it makes us, right? Like you just start to see with so much love, like that's not that person's true self. Oh, I get that. I have that within me too. With the shadow, the things that you don't like in others, that you rub you the wrong way, turn you off, enrage you, are often things within ourselves that we don't want to admit, um, that we don't like, that we don't accept. So here's a few examples. I'm on this website now called highexistence.com, but these are some really good examples. So one is a tendency to harshly judge others. So you may have caught yourself doing this once or twice when you pointed out to a friend how ridiculous someone else looked. Deep down, you would hate to be singled out in this way. So doing it to another reassures that you're smart enough not to take the same risks. Another way is this, like, if you've ever been like in a class or in a cast or have work colleagues that have behaviors that irk you. So for example, maybe they just talk a lot, like they always answer questions first and they talk a lot. We might notice that we have those same tendencies within ourselves and we don't like those tendencies. So it doesn't mean that we always are validating how other people are behaving. Like it doesn't make them right or anything. And if there's something that needs tended to, like if there's injustice happening or things like this, like we're not gaslighting, but it does invite us to see where that is within ourselves. And then we can start to become accepting of literally, and Madeline talked about this so beautifully on that episode which was the second one of Soulful Ambition, but like literally every color is within us. We are capable of the most, like the greatest acts in life, and we are capable of the most horrendous. All these colors are within us. And the more we can bring to light those that are within us, they can have less control of our lives, right? Then we have choice. If we don't know this is there, we don't have choice, not really. And I think this is such a great gift we can bring in the world, is like doing this work on ourselves and having the choice. And then we are that example. And then we are like giving grace to others when they maybe haven't awoken to those aspects within themselves yet, when they're not accepting of themselves, Okay, let me go back now. Hold on. Yeah. So I would suggest now to take this into your own life is to pick an area where there's resistance, where you're struggling, where you're not maybe getting the results that you want, and then start to notice, is there another aspect of me in the driver's seat? Is there an aspect of me that is constantly putting myself or others down? Is there the aspect in me that is a doubter, that doesn't believe it's possible, or the unworthiness? Is there something that like you don't want to tell others? That's a great key. There's some shame there around an aspect of yourself and then you start to go, okay, what if this is a character also that I take on? I just do this one quite unconsciously. Maybe it's my default. And so now with curiosity, like a scientist, a social scientist, I'm going to just start to notice. And maybe I give them a name. I have another name for another aspect of myself. I call her Invisible Annie. And I don't even want to talk about her right here, right now, but you can even sense into what that is and how she might behave, what she might do. And the more so there's two things that you can do. You can kind of sit with that aspect of yourself once you start to realize, and once you see, oh, I'm in that shape again. I'm standing in my kitchen. My kids are there. My husband's here. Oh, I'm so in the shape of Mother Martyr right now. Like in that moment, just knowing that I can soften my shoulders a little bit and I can breathe. And then I know that I have a choice. Maybe you have a moment to take to yourself and I say, oh, there's Invisible Annie. I'm not going to abandon her. I'm not going to abandon her by making it about everybody else, or by going like, oh, get over it, Analisa. Like, let's just go. What are you doing? Like, let's change your thoughts. Let's do this. Like, wait a second. What do you need? Oh, I see you. I love you. I've got you. I won't abandon you. This human thing is scary. This human thing is vulnerable. It's uncomfortable. But I promise you, no matter what anybody else thinks about you, if everybody you become a laughing stock of what you're doing, like out there in the world, like I've got you. Because actually, I think what you're doing is really cool. I believe in you. Okay. That's some integration. I'm not trying to get rid of Invisible Annie. She's totally allowed to be here. And then the second practice that you can do with her, him, them, could be a color, could be an energy, doesn't have to have a gender, of course. The second thing you can do, and this is very Madeline Moon, is like intentionally take on the shape and act it out. And that is so powerful too, my friends. So say, for example, I take Mother Martyr and I come in my room and I'm like, all right, like do your monologue, Mother Martyr. What do you have to say? And I just start to rage and maybe I start to cry and I start to wail and it's ugly and messy. And then, so I did this recently and then I started to feel like, oh, this isn't just me. This is like the mothers of all time. Like this is these are the mothers that have been ignored, that have been unsupported. And I felt like I was moving that energy, processing it through me, not just for myself, but for the collective. I don't know if that's true. That's how it felt. It was so powerful. And then I was ready to continue on with my day. And I felt like, how different is this, you all? How different is this? Like normally I would, shame myself for not being better. Like you just don't love your family enough. You don't this enough. You're not like, I just want to be the mom that's just so happy and positive all of the time. Like what's wrong with me? Again, that's not like top layer consciousness, but that's there. And so instead that's not happening. And instead I'm going like, let that part of you move through you and be expressed. And then I get to know that shape more. And then the next day I can sense that shape a little earlier. And then I'm like, oh, now what is the mother? Who is the mother that I want to be? This ideal version of myself, or this truer version, this soulful version of myself. And then I'm ready to dance with that part of myself. And it becomes less scary. It's like we're shapeshifters. We're not these rigid things. It's not linear. You are allowed to move in between the part of you that believes and doubts 100 times throughout your day. And the more that we're not afraid of the doubter. We're not afraid of the manipulator. We're not afraid of the angry, aspect of ourselves. I think that'll change the world. Simply put. We're going to be doing a lot of this work in the next round of the Soulful Ambition Circle because we're going after our deepest desires. And when we make that commitment and when we're devoted to that expansion and that evolution, the triggers arise and these aspects to see these parts of ourselves that are ready to be shed are going to come up, and we want them to, so that we can integrate. I said shed, maybe some of it we shed, but we can also integrate, right? And then continue to move forward towards our destiny, our greatest purpose, the next right relationship with our truest self. So there you have it. I'd love to hear from you. Let me know how these practices go. And I'm wishing you a beautiful, beautiful day. If this podcast touched you, spoke to you, I would love if you would share it on social media and tag me, share it with a friend. If you haven't written a review yet, that would also mean the world. All right. I'm wishing you so much love, and I will see you next time right here on Soulful Ambition.